Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. So I'm going to keep it kind of short tonight and just talk about, weather. And what I mean by that is we're expecting 1 to 3 inches of snow coming into where I live. And it made me think about what you have to do. I've talked about maintenance and cleaning your guns last night, but weatherizing them is a thing too. As you think about what you're going to use the weapon for, if you're hunting, I have a problem with circulation in my hands. It's become an arthritis in my hands. It's become more apparent as I've gotten older. It's one of the reasons why I don't know that I'm going to be doing a lot of hunting anymore, other than just to hang out with my brother. The weather's starting to affect parts of my body that I just don't like. And as I weatherize myself, put on more clothing, better clothing that's suited for the weather conditions, because anyone who's ever hunted a day in their life knows that the weather reports always seem to fail with what is actually going to happen when you get out there. Same thing goes with your guns. There is a time and place that I would have never owned a stainless steel gun because I would have worried about it casting off a glare. My dad would always say that, what's the point? By the time they see the glare, you've already killed them. And my dad also used to say that more people have killed deer and elk in plaid, smelling of campfires and cigarette smoke than have in modern days. And he's not wrong. But I started thinking about, as we're planning for the apocalypse, I guess, or, just day-to-day life, and as you use your weapons, what do you do to weatherize your guns? And in the summer months, what you need to do is you need to lubricate the gun correctly, but you need to be very careful of, especially in the Southwest, something like moon dust. So New Mexico, in the Southwest in general, has this weird fine dust that happens with wind. And it sticks to everything. You can clean your car or your house, you can dust everything, the wind will blow, and instantly you have this fine, gritty dust that is horrible for rifles. And that's where you have to have the appropriate viscosity of lubrication for your gun, because you want it to be like an AR-15. You still want it to be slightly wet, especially to run, because that just seems to be how the weapons platform works the best. But you don't want to over-lubricate it, because it'll attract that dust and it'll stick to everything and cause other issues. The gun will jam up and gum up. Conversely, when it starts to get really cold, if you have too much lubrication, and it's of the wrong viscosity, it'll freeze or it'll gum up just the same. So what do? What I have found in my personal journey with this problem, because it is a problem that I've had to solve, is it always seems that I fall back to COP. Cleaning, lubricating, and protectant that the military uses seems to work the best for me. Now, I keep my guns lubricated the same way. I don't put too much on it, and I keep a very fine, thin layer on it. But you start thinking about other things with cold weather. As cold weather rolls in, if you're out in the weather and you're carrying your gun hunting or otherwise, as it gets wet, what do? So at the end of a hunt, as I'm stalking my game and I come back to camp at the end of the day, I usually wipe my guns down just to keep rust, away from the metal parts, because most of my guns are Parkerized that I hunt with. My PTRs are Parkerized. What does that mean? Parkerization is where they basically immerse the gun in a solution that causes the metal to gray. Okay, it's just a very fine finish on it. And what that does is it protects the metal so that against corrosion to some degree, but not towards moisture corrosion. So you have to get rid of that moisture. Okay? Now, I'm not one of those guys that you can ask my brother. I give him crap about. He babies his guns. The minute they get wet, they are pulled out of service, and he's cleaning them, wiping them down. I've even seen him put plastic bags over the things because he's afraid of getting them wet. I've hunted in too much snow and ice to know that's not a practical solution, when you're hunting. So I always wait till I get back to camp to wipe it off. Now, the one thing I do that's kind of interesting for weatherproofing is I'll either put a balloon or a condom on the muzzle of the gun. And the reason why I do that is to keep stuff from coming in. Now, I've done that when it's really muddy because, I've slipped and fell. If you've hunted in New Mexico, you know that we have this stuff called clay. And the clay here, it's really slick. And it doesn't matter how much tread you have on your boot. You're going to slip and slide. And when I was younger, I haven't so much, knock on wood, for what I'm about to say, I've fallen and I've actually dumped my gun in the mud. It instantly got wiped off when I went back to camp, cleaned it out, ran a boar brush or a patch. Well, in this case, both of them at the same time, or not the same time, but during that cleaning session to make sure that there was nothing in it. From that, I started carrying rubber balloons, because they conform to the muzzle. Or, in World War II and in deployments around the world since then, condoms have been used to cover the muzzle of your gun. Something else I do that's kind of weird, but it is a proven fact, is that actions freeze on you if you get too much water in the action. Moisture, that is. So I would actually, as I'd walk, sometimes I'd put it underneath my armpit, the action of the gun. So like an M1 Garand, or, my PTRs, I've done that. And the idea is to keep it just warm enough so the moisture doesn't freeze. New Mexico is really great about having wind chills that come out of nowhere, especially while you're hunting, that can freeze water very rapidly. There's no other way to put it. I've hunted in 2 and 3 feet of snow. As you can tell, this is kind of how I've gotten older. As I've gotten older, I've kind of decided that, that's not as much fun as it used to be. Especially with my ankles, my knees, and now my hands, especially this last hunt, throbbing every time it got cold, no matter how many pairs of gloves or whatever warmers I had on them. You could do that too. Put your hand warmers or your toe warmers on your action of your gun. If you're using a semi-automatic action, you got to think about all the ingress points where water or moisture could get in, and what it will do is it'll freeze and it'll stop the action from turning or stop it from cycling the gun. There's air density changes that happen. With AR-10s, this is something you'd pay attention to, with AR-15s even, is that as the air density changes and it's really, really cold, that air does different things in the action. This is why the Kalashnikov traditionally has done very well in cold weather. The AR-15 is no slouch at that anymore. There are several videos that you can see what the AR-15 does when it's frozen. Mac from Military Arms Channel has sprayed them down, left varying rifles, different model types, where he sprayed them down with water, left them out in the Indiana weather, which is probably, there's no probably, it's definitely got more moisture in the air, humidity, and will freeze faster than what will happen in New Mexico. But what I've noticed as I've hunted, you run into snow and you don't even pay attention to it. And what I mean by that is you're stalking your game and you brush up against a tree, or you brush up against some oak brush in New Mexico or sagebrush, and there's snow on it, it ends up on your gun. Especially around the action, you're not even paying attention because you're busy looking around. And then you raise up to fire your rifle. This isn't so much of a problem with bolt-action rifles. This is more of a problem with semi-automatic rifles. Your black rifles need a little bit more care in the weather environments that you're going to. You can see that in the same types of jungle warfare. If you talk to Vietnam veterans, talk to them and see what they did to their guns. They would lubricate them a certain way. If you follow standards that the military puts out for like the M16, that seems to work very well for the AR-15. And, I've cited him several times before. Mike with Military Arms Channel, or not Military Arms Channel, Mr. Guns and Gear. He does several videos. That's one of his big things that he's done all the time, where he'll walk you through cleaning and lubrication of a gun. Something to think about is your carry gun. As you go through your life and you have your CCW and you carry your concealed weapon, is the trigger guard big enough so that you can use it if you have a pair of gloves on? Even my most smallest concealed carry, I could wear my gloves and still shoot it. In fact, I train that way. I wear contacts and glasses. I've taken them off when I train with my rifle and with my pistol. And the idea is, I took a page from Sonny Pazikas where he says, it's not going to happen, the incident, whatever it is not going to happen when you're prepared for it. It's going to happen when you're in your boxers in the middle of the night. You're going to have to be proficient with those skills enough to know that you can do what you need to do. So I train to that level. I don't run around in my boxers, but I take my contacts out or I take my glasses out, and I train in all weather, because weather tends to change your behavior, and your gun handling changes accordingly. So I'm just saying, take some time, go out and train in the weather, plan for it, think about the solution and the problem, because you never know what you're going to get into, whether you hunt or you're just rolling around. Like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, be great.